Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Off the Hook with Matty D. This is the time of year where you're probably making your plans and maybe already doing it to get some shad fishing done, some striper fishing, or maybe you're thinking out ahead toward the summer and you're thinking about maybe crappie or bluegill or smallmouth or many of the streams in Northern Virginia. That's right, I said Northern Virginia. That's why I want to bring in an expert on that area. You might know him. You might even follow him on Instagram. His name is Rob Snowhite. Rob, thanks so much for joining us. How are you this afternoon?
Doing well, thanks. And yes, that is my real last name.
Is that a question you often get asked, by the way?
Almost daily.
Really?
Yeah, the doctor's office, the nurses are always embarrassed. They look down at the clipboard, they look up, they look left. And it's me. But yeah, that's.
I mean, I think that's first of all, it's an excellent name. I mean, you know, it combines what I do, right? Snow is white, and therefore Snow White, right? But I just think it's cool. It flows off the tongue easily. So yeah,
It's been a fun ride with that name.
I'm sure. So Rob, let's get a little bit into your background. First of all, I want to thank you on my show for having me on your show about a month and a half ago.
Mm-hmm.
Great time, and I meant what I said. We are going to do the Western New York streams, Oak and Sandy and those stuff together. I'm looking at somewhere second week of November. We'll see what your schedule looks like, etc. So
We're planning on it.
Yeah. All right. So
Yes.
you had an interesting story about how you started fishing and fly fishing. So kind of give us that rundown of a little bit of your background there.
I grew up in Reston, Virginia, the planned community just outside DC. My parents moved there in the early 70s, and there just happened to be a lake across the street from me growing up. We were on I guess, a hilltop, and then one side of it would be Snake Den Branch, which was dammed up to become Lake Audubon, and then the other side was the Glade. So we had a creek on one side of the house and a lake on the other. Fortunately, beavers came in and they dammed up the stream, so we had fishing on both sides. Didn't have cable TV till high school, so there wasn't much else to do, so we fished.
And so, I mean, that's awesome, right? Because really, back in our day, it was get outside, don't stay inside. You know, I mean, how much could you play the Atari 2600, right? I mean, or ColecoVision. But, I mean, yeah, so you got outside, you started fishing. And so what was that first fish? What was that first love in fishing?
It was always just fishing. Maybe my grandparents living on a coral reef in Florida, and I could just step out their door, go around the pool from the condo down the steps and be into fish and hanging out with guys there when I was a little kid. But I'm gonna have to say it was the first striper on the fly rod. I've been fly fishing for years,
Right.
been all over the country, did some international fishing, but it was the first fly rod striped bass. It was around May 5th, 1999. It was the afternoon of my last college final. So it was a good way to celebrate. And I just never hooked into a fish that strong on a fly rod. It was an 8-foot, it was a 9-foot 8-weight
Right.
Orvis rod I bought for traveling. And this was on the Rappahannock right under the Route 1 bridge. The shad were sort of done for the year. And I never really had time to fish the stripers because when college was done, I always left town. And that fish kind of changed my life.
And so saying it changed your life, does that mean you then just decided, hey, I am going to just go all in on fly fishing and I'm going to attack every species I can? Is that really where kind of that began?
More of, I just got a job at the Orvis store when I broke that rod a couple months later and decided I'm going to start working in a fly shop. And it kind of snowballed from there. And everything else has been, I mean, my whole life has been focused and fascinated with catching fish, but that sort of made it a professional thing. And it gave me access to gear and guides and just a wealth of information. Every Saturday we had knowledgeable guides and lodge owners come in and just sit there and listen to their talks. And then if the shop was slow or after work, go to a bar and just listen to the gnarled old trout fishing bamboo rod guys that worked with us, just absorb everything.
And when did you decide that you wanted to become a guide? Was it during listening to those stories and working at Orvis, or was it years later?
So people had always asked me to take them fishing growing up. It's just something I did. And then I was working in an Orvis store. People kept offering me money to take them out. So I did that. It was sort of just a weekend thing. And then I was teaching high school and I decided to do casting lessons on the weekends. And I just did that for beer money. It wasn't anything serious.
Right.
And then it kind of just built into I'm going to design a way for clients to hire me in the DC area, but by the hour because everyone has such busy schedules. And that was just a weekend and after work thing. And then in 2010, I went full time and did a Groupon to start off with and sold 1,353 2-hour trips.
Oh my gosh.
So I was guiding 7 days a week the entire summer. I didn't take a day off from Memorial Day through Labor Day.
Wow.
And it was 2 hours. So I'd be 2, 4, 6, and 8. So 4 trips a day, no breaks in between. Ended up buying a drift boat because I got tired of standing and waiting all the time.
Okay.
I could sit down at least. And then I was a stay-at-home dad for years. And that enabled me to go out and on times when other people were home or when my kid was at school and just work this sort of odd guiding schedule of if it was the shad season, I could have people show up at 8 in the morning, do 2 or 3 hours, and then go in late. Somebody will duck out for lunch or say they're in a business meeting, come fish for 3 hours. I'm still in the same spot, meanwhile, catching fish all day. That person leaves, someone leaves early. There's always somebody changing in and out of suits around Chain Bridge when they're fishing with me.
That's incredible.
That way I could cater to people who just have crazy, weird schedules in the DC area.
Well, and I think that that's really entrepreneurial of you to realize that, look, DC people are so bogged down with their work that I'm going to do 2-hour trips. I just think that that's an interesting business model. And obviously it was the golden ticket to, 1,300 trips from a Groupon is incredible. Like you're probably like a premier success story for Groupon if they knew this story.
It was wild. And they actually ran it twice. And the second one was after a Super Bowl where they had the commercial with Timothy. I can't remember his name.
Okay.
Timothy something. And he was ordering some kind of
the one from
Nepalese
Shawshank?
fish stew or curry. And it was at a Groupon restaurant.
Right.
And then it just blew up. I was hitting refresh. I thought maybe 50, 60 people would buy into this. And it's refresh 25, refresh 375, refresh like 450. I'm thinking, how am I supposed to fit these people in? There's an expiration date on these Groupons too. Right. It was a wild ride. I learned a lot. I've been guiding off and on for myself and through fly shops around the country for years, but working that much to that many people, you really get dialed into what fly fishing guide life is like. And it's not always the fun and glamorous things you might see in a catalog or a YouTube video now.
You're going to get clients, and I'm sure you did, that probably have touched a fly rod once when I was 13 years old, and now I'm 53. And you're going to get somebody who's like, yeah, I double haul 90 feet. I'm good. You probably saw it all for sure.
I've had people that were in the Seychelles 5 days before, and then they're fishing 4 Mile Run with me. For those that aren't familiar, 4 Mile Run is the sewage discharge river off of Arlington County at the southern base of National Airport. But you can see anything in there. There's probably herring in there now. There might be rainbow trout. You might see blue crabs in there. You never know. It is the weirdest place to fish. I don't know if Richmond has a water treatment plant, but I would start fishing it.
The water treatment plants. So, of course, you might have heard we had a water treatment problem here. And so the James River actually has an offshoot that feeds these ponds that they get, but I don't know that there's a discharge from it. I'm not 100% sure. So, yeah.
It's crystal clear, and it's 60-something degrees every day of the year. So in the winter, it's warm, so all the fish swim up there for the warmth. And conversely, in the summer, it's cold. It's really nice. You want to wear waders out there. Right. Wearing waders in 60-something degree water on a 90-degree day is rather nice.
It's just, it's interesting. I've never thought about that. And so does the discharge then go into the Potomac? Is that why you're getting blue crab?
Right. So it goes in right at the base of the airport, which is tidal. So most of the 4 Mile Run section up to the Mount Vernon Bridge is tidal. And the history is it was called Flour Mill Run. Okay. George Washington used to get his corn ground there, and then the cartographer misspelled it. So it has nothing to do with being 4 miles long. But you can go upstream, and there's the regular bullhead catfish, bluegill, long-eared sunfish, and then you hit the tidal section. Whatever comes up can be in there. You never know. There's ornamental goldfish. There's koi, tilapia. That's the weird one. Is blue and purple tilapia
that is odd.
Probably 4 or 5 pounds.
Really? And I mean, do you target those? I mean, is that a trip that you try to do, or just something you do?
Yeah, I had a client in November 2 years ago, and we were using little pink collared rainbow warriors, and he was sight casting, and they shredded them. Most fish don't. I was surprised at how much they bent a 5-weight. We probably caught 4 or 5, and we've always thrown flies at them, but this day they were aggressive.
That's interesting.
Who knows?
So, okay, so let's talk a little bit about your guiding. So now we know you do smaller trips, you do bigger trips. What do you like to guide for? What species do you go after? I know you have a pretty long season. Right now, you're in your shad season.
Yeah, so springtime is shad, the first. I mean, it's so early and warm this year. Yeah. It's going to be 70 next week. That water, ideally 55 degrees is when they can viably reproduce at 55. The eggs can fertilize and go on to become shad. But they're just swimming around right now, and they're angry at anything that comes in their way, and they bite it. And so we're going to do the hickory and American shad. We don't want to catch the gizzard shad, but then mixed in with them are the white perch and then the striped bass, usually schoolies, Fredericksburg and DC up to Chain Bridge. You get 6 inchers to 26 inchers on the same fly. And then needlefish, unfortunately, coming after them. And then the gar sort of round out the spring fishery. And then we're always going to be targeting snakehead. They show up with the shad. John Odekirk estimates 20% of the population migrates upstream each spring to sort of look for new places to lay eggs and distribute it and inhabit new areas to prevent competition downriver with other adults. And they swim up. They're lazy fish. So they're going to be in the side eddies that we're fishing the edge of for shad, and they come up and breathe air right at your feet, and it's crazy. And then someone comes by and snags it with a giant hook. I don't know if that happens in Richmond yet. The snakehead, 30 years ago, you didn't have to worry about the snakeheads and snaggers. I'd say for every fly angler or regular angler, there's 15 people snagging.
So let's take a step back here. So first of all, snakehead's an invasive species. I get that. But why are people snagging snakehead? Is this an edible fish?
Money. So they're worth some guys in the river that talk to you. I've known these guys for years now. They say $100 a fish on the black market. You go up any size fish to a restaurant in DC. They don't tell you where. You knock on the door and they'll buy them, even though it's illegal because you don't have a commercial fishing. And it's illegal to remove snakeheads live from the river. The Lacey Act, it's a $200,000 fine. And these guys will fill up a frame pack. You can't put them in garbage bags because their teeth will pop them and they'll go through. Even the heavy duty lawn bags. So they have old school frame packs with the metal on the outside. Yeah. They'll put 8 or 9 of those in there and they'll be there. If I have 8 hours, they're there when we get there and they're there when we leave. Wow. And they come up to breathe air because there's more oxygen concentrated in atmospheric air than the river water. And it's weird how they make eye contact when they come up. Most fish, shad, they have no idea what's going on. It's a dead eye. Perch look around, stripers, nothing. But a snakehead, it's like looking at a puppy or a cat and looking back at you.
They're just looking right at you. Wow. Yeah. So I've never done snakehead fishing. It is done down here a bit in and around some of the rivers, throughout Richmond. But I think you have a bigger population for it. Yeah. So.
And some years there's more than others. I think last year we saw 2 or 3. The guys would come down with their snagging rigs, look around, and just shrug and go home. We would tell them we haven't seen anything.
Interesting.
And again, it hasn't rained in 3 years, really. This is going to be another low water year.
Yeah, you're already in a moderate to severe drought. Looking at the last drought report that I saw, it comes out on Thursday. I looked at it on Monday. So, yeah, I mean, and there's no significant rain coming for you guys anytime soon.
No, but when the Potomac's low and clear and warm enough, those shad, you can see them 30, 40 feet out, chase your fly. It's when they're vertical, they blend in. Their backs are green, they're silvery.
Right.
But when they turn on their side to chase a fish, it just lights up like a signal mirror out in the water. And you can watch them chase your fly all the way to the surface. And if it happens this year, I can't wait. I'm trying to catch one on a popper
Oh,
because
that'd
we've
be
had
awesome.
them chase flies as you're roll casting. They'll chase them as they're skipping across the surface.
Incredible, incredible. And so, all right, so you come out of shad, you have stripers, you have gar, snakeheads. So that brings us, we're now May-ish, or we?
May, June.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Then it's largemouth bass, reservoirs, lakes, stocking them along shorelines. So largemouth, snakehead and largemouth, it's the same flies. They're going to eat, a clouser minnow, a frog, a popper. They'll eat anything. So we're fishing moving tidal creeks around DC, preferably low light. And you can get stripers pretty much all spring and summer into the fall doing that. And then, it's been so dry, the lakes have been getting nasty and the rivers get low. So end of July and August really hasn't been that great. Except for 2 years ago, my buddy and I waded up to Little Falls Dam on the Potomac, which I've never seen exposed before my entire life.
Okay.
So we waded up there and we walked across it and found smallmouth and largemouth. And it was a neat spot we've never been able to access and probably won't get up there again.
And you were able to access because the water was so low, it was such a severe drought.
It's sort of a semicircular shaped concrete intake dam. I don't know, maybe above lock 6 or 7. It's right where DC and Maryland end on the Potomac, and it goes almost across, but it's always underwater.
Gotcha.
And I've always just been curious as there's just a huge boulder field below it, and I've gotten close to that before, but I never made it up there. That was one of the cooler things I got to do during a drought year.
And I think that that's really important because, like I have fished, and we've talked to you and I about this before, Salmon River, et cetera, on some of the extreme low water years. And part of the thing that I do is I walk the river to get a really good lay of what the structure is so that I know where the eddies should form as the water comes up and we go into different. And so I think you're doing the same thing. You really get an idea of, this is where I want to be. This is where I want to put my clients. This is where I want to really attack the fishery.
And then I also have to decide based on the tides and the winds. If it's too windy, the tidal creeks, like 4 Mile Run, the water will blow out. It'll be dry. So each trip sort of has to be catered to the client's needs and the weather. I mean, I have to do all of the meteorology and the planning and looking at the tide apps and the moons. I'm doing a trip with Chesapeake Women's Anglers in DC in June, and we're doing the morning of a full moon.
Okay.
So we have to make sure that when we're walking won't be 2 feet underwater. I said, be prepared to get wet.
So do you plan that for a diminishing tide, a lowering tide? Because you don't want to be there, obviously, in high tide, because you have a full moon and high tide, you're looking at an astronomical high tide.
Sometimes the fish then go up onto the sidewalks to feed in DC around the tidal areas, and you can catch gar, carp. I've sight cast to snakeheads with stoneflies and caught them. My buddy Thomas was it was just white marabou on a hook, and it was just sitting on the sidewalk, just kind of fluttering, and he caught a 20-something inch snakehead.
So they're pretty aggressive.
Once you hook them, they're not happy. They're kind of just lazy. They'll sit with their back out of the water. They're so just like big and bad. They don't care. There's no ospreys picking them up.
Right.
I've seen one blue heron eat one at Burke Lake. The lake's infested with them up here. So that lake has walleye, muskie, bluegill. I swear we caught a rock bass there, and now snakehead and tilapia and gizzard shad. It's really weird what that lake up here has. The most heavily fished location in the Commonwealth is Burke Lake.
Really? Jeez, I got to get up there and fish with you. I got to see some of these spots for sure. All right, so now we're coming out of June. We're going to July and August. You said sometimes absolutely dead, too hot, water low, etc. What do you start looking at as you go into into September, October, November?
We're looking at fish just getting ready to put on fat for the winter, sort of. They know it's coming. And it coincides with all of the baby shad and herring congregating, getting ready to move out to the ocean. So you can just crush them on little white clousers and woolly buggers. So all the stripers and largemouth, and the Potomac, DC also has smallmouth. They're all feeding on them. Just little, and you'll see them just busting bait and everything skips up. So that picture is up on, I think that's up on Little Falls that day.
Okay.
In DC.
You said
That was
smallmouth. That's
fun.
why I threw that up there.
Yeah, it's pretty weird that you can catch so many species of fish in DC. It's remarkable. I mean, anything from people catch rainbow trout every year during the shad run from the boats at Fletcher's.
You know, I think that you make a great point there because everybody thinks of DC as the mall, the capital, the hardcore downtown, but you get outside of that and, you know, the Potomac is right there, as you said, and you have all these other tidal rivers. I mean, Reagan National is right on the river, right on the northern Chesapeake. So you do have a tremendous amount of water. And once you go west, like off of the George Washington Parkway, you have some areas there you can fish.
Yeah, the Parkway is my jurisdiction. I have a permit with the national park. So I do Chain Bridge all the way to Mount Vernon. Pretty much any of the pull-offs along the river, you can find fish,
Right.
especially in the springtime. There's the gar will be right off of the lower sections around the Mount Vernon Trail. Oh, look at that steelhead. That was fun last fall. It was snowing up there today. I had the river camera on.
You knew I was going to pull some of these up here for you too. Yeah. So in the fall, you also do get a little bit of, I need to break away and do some fishing for myself.
Yeah, it's getting gross, and I don't want to be out fishing in just nasty, green, scummy algae water. So I start tying my steelhead flies, thinking about the fall run up north. And then stripers start picking up. The water cools down a bit. Everyone's getting hungry, and the tidal basin at night on an incoming tide can be absolutely stunning. Or Gravelly Point, you can take the metro to National Airport, Reagan National, as you said. The locals up here, we still call it National.
Right.
My dad still calls Reston Parkway Reston Avenue too. He's still old. Oh, there's Misty. He's in Bhutan right now, finishing up a guided trip for Golden Mahseer. He's one we need to get you a hold of.
Really?
He has stories.
Oh.
Yeah, he's the leading like fly fishing guru of the Himalayas through Nepal and Bhutan and India.
Wow.
You have to watch out for tigers with him.
Yeah, no, that's a whole different thing. I mean, you know, I did Alaska and we fished next to bears, but I think tigers is that next level. Like, yeah, interesting.
He said the elephants let you know when they're nearby, but you can't always hear the elephants because they're in the elephant grass. I said, I don't know about that.
Because it's not crunchy. It's just quiet. I mean, it's a large.
So Misty and I have been planning on doing a trip down the Shenandoah for almost 3 summers now.
But the water is just every
too
summer.
Low.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the DWR has no choice but to shut down the fisheries because you want to protect the brookies and the rainbows and all. So, yeah, no, I get that. So, gorgeous fish here, by the way.
Yeah. So once we get into the fall, then I start doing night trips, especially once the daylight savings comes through and it gets dark earlier and you can get into an outgoing tide at dusk, preferably low pressure. You can clean up on stripers as long as you want to fish an outgoing tide or incoming tide, depending on which side of the river that you're on.
And those stripers are still in the schoolie range, or when we get into summer, are they getting a little bit bigger?
So the big cows, like the big ones, they're in now, the 50-pounders. They're up in Belmont Bay off the Occoquan and in the depths at Fletcher's right now. You can catch them on a fly rod, long leader, 1-ounce jig head, and just some kind of big bait fish that looks like a herring and just jig it. You can get them. Biggest one we've ever caught from shore was 30 inches maybe.
It's a nice fish.
And the fly it was caught on it may have been like this exact one. Just simple, just
right.
Flash of boot tail, chenille body, size 10, large dumbbell eyes. And it had probably 3 tag ends hanging off of it from having damsel flies.
Right, just
for showing off flies, I did bring visual aids.
No, you're
the
good.
Damsel's pretty much going to catch everything.
Right.
There's tutorials on how to tie that. And for your Richmond folks, Green Top carries really good ostrich plumes. I'm kind of ruining it now that you're all going to go buy them up before I can get in there next time. But that's pretty much it. And for the shad run, everything's going to eat the damsel. All the fish I've mentioned will eat this. I only really need 3 or 4 patterns, like a clouser that's 1 inch long, a clouser 4 inches, a damsel, and then I throw these jigs for the shad just to help get it down deep.
With a jig head.
Yeah.
So
It's simple, but that fly took probably 10 plus years to tweak with body color, body material, head shape, head weight, tail material. That that simple looking thing took, about a decade. And I have all the iterations in my laundry room of it.
right. So let's talk a little bit about equipment here for a quick
Mhm.
second. So you got hooked on using an 8 weight 9 footer, got your first striper. What are you using for shad? And then as you migrated, are you staying 7 weight? You going 6 weight?
I really want to fish a 5 weight.
You
I
like
used to have
light.
this old Orvis just noodly rod, and I
Yeah.
could roll cast 30, 40 feet with a sinking tip, and it would bend. There's a video where it shows me, I say I'm going to catch one fish on every cast. And it's pretty much that for 11 minutes.
Wow.
And it's on that 5 weight. And that eventually broke after almost 20 years of owning it. But I like a 5 weight. But the problem is on the Potomac, you're going to hook something much bigger than what you're targeting. Everything we're targeting is also food for the stripers and
Yep.
blue catfish. So there's something every year that I can't land. And I might start off with a 5 weight, and then I'll probably switch into an 8 weight. And
Gotcha.
most of my clients, we're going to use 6s and 8s.
Got you. Because you want them to have the beef, because you want, if they hook into something larger,
Mhm.
you don't want to be like, sorry, you got to pull the line and break this off because we don't have the backbone.
Right. And it's not like the current down in Fredericksburg where it's kind of just rolling through there and people are waiting. This is, if you step into the Potomac at Chain Bridge, you're going to die most likely. It is not a place to enter. You're not even supposed to have your ankles wet in tide pools.
Really?
So it's very fast. So we're using very fast sinking lines. Like Orvis
250 grain?
250, or if you're on a boat, I do 350.
Uh-huh.
And then Scientific Anglers, Express, just fast sinking.
Yeah.
And then I've used the jig because
You want to still
we're
get it
we're
down.
fishing the whole section of that river is called the Mather Gorge. So you have everything from Great Falls to Georgetown, which drops in elevation. And then right above Chain Bridge and below Little Falls, it gets compressed into a narrow chute. And that's where the whitewater kayaking is. It is crazy fast water.
Yeah.
You see police boats coming up there with 200-300 horsepower outboards, and they can't hold where their position is.
So that's,
You
yeah,
see people just in the Fletcher's rowboats just going nowhere.
incredible.
It is fast.
Yeah. So, and that's on that. What are you using on the Rappahannock in Fredericksburg?
I would probably use a 6 weight down there
And
because there's so many
still sinking
snakehead
line?
that are down there. Also, if you're hooking a ton of fish, you get exhausted throwing a 5 weight all day
Yeah.
for shad. They're strong. I don't think people understand that these are ocean going fish with forked tails, and you hook a hickory, they come in this big, and this big.
Right.
Even one this big is going to bend an 8 weight. They're they're forked tail like a tuna, and they're used to being chased by dolphins and who knows what else in the ocean. So they're strong and energetic. The hickories are all going to flip. So you can tell what the fish are when they bite. The hickories are going to kind of go down, and then you're going to feel them come up and flip. The American shad just goes straight down, and I doubt you're ever going to catch one of those in Fredericksburg. That's an all hickory spot. And then the white perch, they just really wobble your rod.
Mm-hmm.
And we're fishing 2 flies at once, so you can get 2 different. If you get 2 perch, you really can tell they're perch because your rod is just going everywhere.
Wait. You can do tandem flies up there?
2
So-
rigs. So it's DC 2 fly limit. So I use the jig mostly, and then the damsel
On the
I don't know, 18 inches behind. And I'll use Berkeley Vanish 17-pound, maybe 2 feet of that from my line end to the jig, and then about 18 inches of 10-pound Berkeley Vanish to the damsel. And yeah, most things are going to go for the damsel, but you can hook 2 fish, and then if they're 2 hickories, they're both going to jump. And then sometimes one gets eaten and pulled, and it's just crazy. And we call it fish nunchucks. You lift it up, and there's 2 different fish swinging around, foot apart.
And I'm not 100% sure on our regulations here, but I don't think we can do that. I think we're single fly, single hook only in the James. I think that's something I have to check. That's interesting. Really interesting.
And also, the spot at Chain Bridge, it's probably 65 to 75 feet deep. right there. Captain John Cook, that's where he got with his boat. His boats were able to get that far up.
Gotcha.
And they wrote that you could scoop fish out with a frying pan. And
back then,
you see kids using tackle boxes and hats, and they'll just scoop herring out. The streams fill up. There's no room for water in the streams when that many herring come up.
That's incredible. And so you also mentioned something. You get both American and hickory shad.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's nice. So of course, earlier, many years ago, they wiped out the Americans on the James. This year, I have heard personally of about 5 Americans being caught, which is like record. I mean, because it just hasn't been. So maybe slowly this is going to start to come back. But I'll let you know in 2 decades.
The way to tell them apart is a hickory shad will have an underbite, like a cash register jaw.
Yep.
And the only way I can describe American shad is they look like a giant dumb minnow. If you were going to draw a cartoon of a dumb fish, it's just this huge eye that looks at nothing. Yeah. And they're sort of pinkish diamond-shaped scales where the hickories are going to be a little more bluish. They're just dumb looking. Yeah. And they're much bigger. If you get a female full of eggs, she can run 6-7 pounds.
Yeah, ginormous, which is for shad, which is awesome. Really is. All right, so let me just get back to a couple more pictures here while we're chatting here. Young person, you guided friend, going for some crappie. This is awesome.
Yeah, that looks like maybe that was back in the tidal basin somewhere. Yeah, crappie looks like a purple worm. So in the summertime, fishing is pretty easy. It's a green popper for me usually, and a purple wiggly worm squirmy on the bottom. Yeah, there again, these are huge crappie. Blue popper made from the Flyman Fishing Company, and that's a Gamakatsu B10S hook. And Misty will tell you that's the only model hook that the golden mahseer in the Himalayas can't bend. And he went through all of them. I like that as a nice popper hook. Easy. It's the easiest way to make a popper if you tie flies. And the crappie, some of the bluegill around here can be huge. And that's a big male. You can just tell by the colors.
The colors are gorgeous.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's some nice little creeks around here. There's a lot of little neighborhood reservoirs. There's probably 5 or 6 little miniature lakes around me in the Burke area. Yeah, that's a great largemouth. Right. Again, on the purple worm. And I wear gloves, especially when I'm shad fishing, because they have what are called scoots. They're ventral on their belly. They're serrated like scales that go down. And if they go the wrong direction, they're going to get caught and cut you. And the white perch have pretty nasty dorsal fins. You just want to keep the sun off you as much as possible to begin with. That's why Tidal Potomac fly rodders have these nice hoodies that I don't know if we have them anymore. They're very nice to show our representation.
Hold on. Let me get to that.
Yeah, look how big. That's a 5-weight rod.
That's just awesome, dude.
That's a Douglas Sky rod. That's a really nice one. Orvis bat and kill reel. We usually will take off my flip flop, but I wear Crocs more often. If a panfish is bigger than my size 10 flip flop, we know it's big. And we were catching some huge red-eared sunfish during the cicada hatch that were pretty much barfing up cicadas. Oh, they probably grew an inch themselves just from all that protein in a couple of weeks.
So there's a question for you. So there's going to be not like the brood last year, but there's going to be a cicada hatch this year. And I think some portions, if I remember the map correctly, extreme Northern Virginia, D.C. area, Baltimore may get into it again.
I've been selling a lot to Maryland and Pennsylvania this year.
So how was that last year? And
it was disgusting. I love bugs. I went to school for entomology. I have butterflies and frames and all sorts of weird bug things. It was cool watching the emergence. This is my 3rd time here in Northern Virginia. It was 4th grade. And then I was teaching high school in 2004 when it happened last. And then this time. And it got pretty gross. They're just on everything and the noise, and they're squirting the honeydew. I actually was bit by one. I turned on my leaf blower and they started flying at me. Oh. And one of them stuck its proboscis in my finger and punctured me, which people say they don't bite, but I definitely had an incident. And then every time you throw your cicada fly down, either a goose or a turtle would go for it. I never actually caught anything on the local lake near me, maybe one bluegill. And I would go out all the time. And people are sending me pictures of carp, largemouth,
Yeah.
smallmouth. For the life of me, I couldn't catch one on my own fly.
That's what I heard. I heard that like it was, Carp City. If you threw a cicada out there, even the grass carp are like, nope, I don't want grass. I want that, and so, but.
And then they start dying and then the moisture and they decompose and everything smelled. Like it was cool for a couple of days, but then you're like, this is a month.
Yeah, no, right. Yeah.
And I mean, biblical, you can't fly without them coming in your windows. They're coming in your house. There's the ones that are zombies. So it's just a head with no abdomen crawling around. We found one that had blue eyes. So I actually tie a blue-eyed cicada now in case a fish would recognize that. There's supposed to be one in who knows how many.
Gotcha.
It was kind of gross.
You're over it.
Yes. I can go with the small ones. And then the dog day cicadas we have every year. And I just tie mine a little bit larger and in green. I've caught some big smallmouth on that, just floating along under trees in the summer.
Right. And then they just come up and boom. Got it.
It's a huge meal. And my cicada doesn't, you can go online and everyone has exact replicas. Mine, when it hits the water, looks like a fluttering bug. I've sat there and just watched fluttering cicadas in the water and film them and see the vibrations their wings make and how fish react to them. And that's my fly.
Interesting. That's really smart. That's a lot of work to get that right reproduction, from what we're doing. I like that.
I probably spent 3 months working on that pattern. It probably took me 2 months just to figure out the eyes. And it's just a drilled piece of foam, a little foam cylinder that makes the red eyes.
Do you enjoy tying flies? Do you find it therapeutic, or is it more just like, I've got to do this in my business?
I love it. Yeah. Everywhere I go, I'm looking at something. Can I tie flies with that? My girlfriend's craft room, I'm looking at everything, her nail polish colors to paint things. And yeah, I go through my daughter's arts and crafts. So this is one thing I use on a lot of my shad flies. I call this the shad nom nom, right?
Yeah.
It's this little chartreuse looking.
Yep. Almost like
everything like that. Salmon, steelhead, trout, catfish. But it's made from something called Korean scrub yarn from Lotte, the international grocery store. And you just wrap it on whatever you want, and it instantly makes like a fly's body. It's like having hackle. And this is $6 for 300 yards.
Stop.
Even the grocery store, I'm looking, the Dollar Tree, dollar store. I'm looking at everything. I look at displays and look at the bead chain they use to hang signs in stores and wonder if I could cut a piece off without being noticed.
Don't remind. I'm gonna send you a picture of stuff that I've bought, at the shops in Pulaski. The little package of what you just showed me, it's exactly that for $4, and maybe it's 3 feet, right? Like 1 meter, right? And you have probably 70 meters there for $6.
And this comes in every color. The stuff at the craft stores isn't as good, and this one has a better iridescence. But it's just called scrubby yarn, and you're supposed to knit your own little strawberries or whatever shaped hand scrubbers. And I just saw that one day and I have to have that.
Yeah, no.
If you buy it in black, it's the quickest woolly bugger you can make. But just a tail and wrap that up and knot it.
But what it came out to in your fly, because you're wrapping it super tight and you're making, that's fantastic.
Orange, the pink one. And then I use colored beads on my shad flies. I think shad flies should be brightly colored.
Yep.
And not too long of a tail. These are all on all my visual aids. These are saber hooks from the Fly Shack.
Okay.
They're size 4. I think we've had one fish bend one during the shad run. And it was a disgusting, huge catfish. We get really gross blue cats that have all sorts of lesions and things missing on them out of the Potomac.
Oh.
And you get them during the shad run. You definitely know because they're going to bulldog you on the bottom.
Right.
You set the hook and they don't know they're hooked yet. And then you feel,
boom.
and then all of a sudden your line starts making that sound like a guitar string. It starts vibrating, and then you set the hook and it's you and a reel. Most fish around here, we don't have to fight on a reel.
Right.
Except during the shad run.
You mentioned something a few minutes ago. I'm going to bring this up here. Tidal Potomac Fly Rodders, the shirt you're wearing. Tell us a little bit about this.
So we are a chapter of the FFI, Fly Fishers International. We started, I want to say, in 2009. There were 4 or 5 people to begin with. And then we had our first meeting at the Arlington County Library. We raffled off a 2-handed rod. So the idea was to fish single and 2-handed rods in the DC metro area for all the crazy local and exotic fish in pretty neat locations for people that can't travel. So our motto is fish where you are, not where you want to be. And we had monthly meetings. We started at an Irish pub, tying flies with 15 to 20 people. Outgrew that, went to another bar. Yeah, look at all those people. We would have 100 people on a Monday night, once a month at a bar, tying flies. And it was incredible until COVID. And then that location shut down, but we still do, it's called beer tie. So we still do those once a month. I teach a class where you just show up. I have all the tools, materials, everything's ready to go. And then other people can just fill their own boxes. We might have guest speakers, raffles. There's always free books. And then we do free casting lessons at Fletcher's Cove, which the Washington Post described as America's best fishing hole. That's just above Georgetown. That's the shad mecca. Right. I don't know why people don't come from other places. The amount of people that go up to the Salmon River for steelhead and the fact that people don't travel here, the weather's probably horrible in Montana and Wyoming right now. Come out here, you'll get a sunburn in a couple hours of shad fishing. And you can catch more fish in a day doing that than you can most other things. I don't think people understand that trout are not technical. I'm sorry, the shad. You just have to get the fly in front of them and they're going to bite it. You're not matching a hatch. You're not presenting delicately. This is not a river runs through it with graceful casts. We call the dip and wiggle. You drop your line in, you shake your rod tip, the line straightens out. And by the time it's straight, you have a shad.
You're right. I mean, it's just people I just don't think want to come to DC, Northern Virginia, and fight the traffic. It's not that it's not a nice place to go. It's just that, hey, I mean, look, if I want to come see you, right, I have to time what time am I going to leave? Because it's either going to be an hour and a half drive or it's 4 hours because I'm locked, right? So, I mean, and we make the pilgrimage no matter what, right? So, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it could take me 15 minutes to get there and 2 hours to get home. Sometimes you make that mistake and you can't unmistake it when you get on the Beltway. You're there.
You're just locked in there. You mentioned fly tying. I know what these are. These are your steelhead flies.
Yeah, I want to throw that stonefly to something around here.
I bet you.
I would love to throw it to a carp, but I just never find feeding carp other than the flooded tidal basin.
I think you could do smallies and largemouth with those, especially more in, not trying to get topwater warm, when it's this time of year. They might be a little bit light to it.
I plan on doing a lot of fishing up near Shepherdstown, West Virginia this summer.
Okay.
And I just articulated, I don't think I have one around me, the Clawdad, the Chuck Craft pattern. So I can't wait to start throwing some crayfish patterns during the summer along the stretch from Shepherdstown down to Harpers Ferry. We're going to hopefully float if the water's high enough.
Yeah, kind of nice if you can float it. All right, so what some people don't know about you is what I get to get sneak peeks on Instagram. And that is after you have fished and you have fished hard, you are a foodie.
I was supposed to have that burger this past weekend and it didn't work out. I've been waiting for that burger. That's at the Phoenix. See, I always need something to eat. Everyone asks how I cook my fish and I tell them I don't eat fish. So what do you do? I'm like, I go out for a sandwich. And yeah, a bacon cheeseburger with avocado is about as good as I can get. There's always a sandwich place when you're urban fishing. That's the benefit. So we ask everyone. That's Casapula's at Rehoboth. I could just tell by the bread. And that's also Rehoboth. I forget the name of the deli. We just ate at the Parkway Deli in Silver Spring, which was phenomenal.
Those are the three that I kind of found.
Yeah, because the fishing can stink, but you can still have a good lunch. It's the one thing that you're sure of. And urban fishing, I always know where the closest McDonald's is, for a big Coke or a bathroom, the closest Slurpee, cold beer, and a sandwich. And we've been hitting up a lot of the Jersey Mikes when there's just not a really good sandwich place around,
Mm-hmm.
I will go get that cheesesteak. We've tried enough cheesesteaks in the DC metro area that I'm convinced that's the best one.
That's incredible. I mean, it really is. But I mean, and I do note, like, as I always follow you on Instagram, you might be in some place, let's say in West Virginia, be like, hey, I'm near this. Is there a good sandwich shop nearby or something I should? And I think that's really cool because you want to engross yourself in that little culture for the 6 to 10 or 12 hours, whatever you're there for.
If you go down a 4-mile run, you can get, well, it's basically little El Salvador next to it. It's called La Chilagua. It's a neighborhood of Salvadoran immigrants that started coming here in the 70s from an area called La Chilagua, and they just renamed the whole neighborhood. You can go get all sorts of fresh fruit and juices and things right on the street. Then there's a fried chicken place right next to the river that is well known for that. I used to work at the cheese shop down the street. So you can go down there and get charcuterie and all sorts of cheese wines. It's fabulous just how many places you can eat. There's a great 24-hour kebab joint within walking distance of 4-mile run. It's amazing just urban fishing, the other things you get to enjoy. But I do have clients, and it's always kids. If we walk past a Chipotle, there's a couple of places they always have to stop and eat. Growing boys they'll actually put down their fishing rods to eat more. I had 2 kids in the boat one day on 4-mile run, rowing them around, and their mom had made them some huge sandwich. And they were discussing what they were ordering at Chipotle when their mom picked them up.
Right.
I'm glad I have a daughter who doesn't eat like that.
Yeah, no, I mean, I have a daughter, and she can eat, and, there was times I was like, man, you're going to eat me at a house and home. But
she's an athlete.
Yeah, that's part of, there is a difference there for sure, right? Yeah.
I put the kibosh on my daughter eating spicy chips after the orange fingerprints all over the fridge this weekend. No more.
Yeah, that's a big thing. Yeah, for sure. Hey, I want to bring up a couple of things while we are talking here. You have a linked tree where you can find out information about Rob between his website, where you can find out about him and his fishing, and how you can find out about him as a guide. I'm going to bring you back in here. Rob,
and that's a picture of my podcast producer. We just call him Producer Jason, and he caught a hickory shad and a striper on one swing of the fly with 2 flies on.
That's incredible. That really is.
And our Japanese friend that he used to fish with in Pennsylvania showed up with some kind of 4-weight sage and 8 or 9X Japanese tippet. This is not trout. We're shad fishing. Right. And it took him a long time to figure out how to trout fish and not trout fish when he's fishing for shad. He wanted to mend the line, and like, no, dude, just they'll set the hook and they're going to jump and do the work for you.
Was he trout setting too?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was funny. We took him steelhead fishing once too. That was fun. He speaks no English. Right. So we just barely communicate, but we all had a great time. We speak fishing.
That's all you need to do.
Yeah.
Fishing is a universal language for sure.
There's the website. I host the longest running fly fishing podcast on iTunes. The next one's going to be with a musician in England his new single is about a fly called the Larkin Gray. His songs have been covered by Heart, by Eddie Money, and a couple of other huge bands. And he's an English trout fisherman. And after we interviewed, he was going to play at a pub from the 1500s. I said I'm from Northern Virginia. A bar from the 60s is old. This one was 500 years old. Wow. So the podcast, if it could drive, it could. It's 16 years old now. That just started with an interview on WTOP. And I wanted to be a writer, and I didn't want to have to worry about proper grammar. So I started recording, and nobody knew what a podcast was.
No.
Back in 2009. It was hard to explain. So I think 400 episodes will be this week.
Is that what you're at? That's
Mm-hmm.
So it's off of the link tree. Let me just pull that back up here for.
Yeah, so it's on iTunes. It's on Spotify. I'm on a network called Waypoint TV.
I did see
if you're into hunting, if you're into fishing and outdoors, it is an immense plethora of information, of podcasts, hunting shows. Tom Rowland, April Vokey, Captain's Collective, a whole lot of just good stuff. And it's all free. You can go waste an entire day watching people flats fishing in Florida.
And
then my YouTube is all sorts of random things. Some of the podcasts used to be uploaded as audio, but now that I'm on Waypoint, it doesn't do that. So I'll film any weird thing in nature I come across. I do some travel logs. There's the cicada right there, my cicada fly. And there's instructions on how to tie all of these and everything with how to get my stuff. Almost everything is not a trade secret anymore.
Right.
So that's
Limu.
yeah, that's my ex-wife's buddy. She used to work with him, David Hoffman. They still text. He was sending my daughter pictures. I think when he was on a show with Ariana Grande, Victorious, on like Nickelodeon or something.
Yeah. And then you have
I get reminded of David all the time.
You have a site on Etsy where you sell your flies as well.
Yeah, so there's the crayfish. I sell gar flies, which are huge. I come up with crazy things. I might wake up in the middle of the night and have to draw a picture or go to my vise. My flies are colorful, they're bright, and they're more for the fish than the people. So I don't have eyes and scales and meticulous details, especially for a gar. That's a dinosaur. They're concerned with calories, not with how long something is, whether it has a lateral line. There's no flash on them because flash doesn't get tangled in their teeth. And then I have crazy looking frogs, and I've come up with bizarre stuff.
But it works.
My scorpion bug on the right, that green one with the green legs, if I only had one topwater fly for bass, that would be it. I go to a quarry in West Virginia, and that caught me my largest smallmouth probably ever last summer or the summer before. That beetle is based on the Bill Skilton beetles.
The foam ones?
Yes. Yeah. Those on Mossy Creek are fantastic in the summer, especially when the Japanese beetles are out. So there's a mix of steelhead, carp, snakehead, everything up there. And they have stories and videos and how to fish them and why to fish them. Some flies, I want you to strip and pause, or strip and wiggle your rod tip like you're just writing like a 30-foot long row of the letter Z on the surface. Because that specifically is going to make one fly move and wiggle and wobble in other ways.
I think that's important because every fly needs to be fished differently. There are different ways to do things, you know.
It's like Belgian beer glasses. Every Belgian beer has a different glass specifically designed to make it better. And I'll tell you, use 2 BB split shot in front of this one, or make sure to use a non-slip mono loop. Right. There's certain flies I say you can't put a dropper on because there's a tail on it that's just going to spin around and get caught. Yep. Some flies I say do not get these near turtles. Turtles eat flies, especially when the mulberries are dropping. I think I'm out of mulberry flies on there right now. Those are fun to tie out of foam and rubber legs. The carp traditionally in the Sino Canal in DC eat mulberries, and it's a traditional thing in DC to go after them.
And that's the grass carp that eat those.
Those are the common carp.
Common carp, okay.
The big golden and mirror ones.
Yeah.
You never know what's in the canal. There's snakehead, largemouth, trout. Whatever ends up in there stays in there until they drain it the next time.
Somebody last week told me that the mulberry fly is good for carp. I've never done carp on a fly rod, and I want to do it so bad. Like, I think it's the coolest thing because it's just a straight pull.
I used to do it all the time in Ohio, Colorado, but I just don't find the rivers in Northern Virginia carpy. They're not in there. And then by the time we find them, if we're in a boat, we spook them. They tell us that we spook them because we're just rowing slowly and the mud just explodes everywhere. Right. Some of the ones in the Potomac, I mean, they're huge. I mean, you couldn't put your arm around them. They're just crazy big.
Huh. Anyway, interesting. I have enjoyed this an awful lot, Rob. I cannot thank you for the time that you've given me today to go through kind of your history of fly fishing and all the different species in Northern Virginia. It has been a pleasure.
It's like a box of chocolates up here.
And you and I have got, how many years have we said on Instagram, hey, man, let's fish. Hey, man, let's fish.
I think since Instagram started.
That's really bad. So, hey, man, let's fish. And I mean
absolutely.
Because I do want to get up there and do the Northern Virginia shad. Because I want to see the difference. I think that's, and then you also have other fisheries I'd love to check out. For sure.
And then the helicopters and airplanes that come down the river, it's just astonishing. You'll see deer and turkeys and bald eagles and terns and egrets and herons all in DC. And then all of a sudden, some special forces helicopter will come up and clean the airspace before the three Sikorskys come up with the president. And they fly right above the river. It's wild.
Cool. Like I would be in awe.
Mm-hmm.
Like when we go fishing, out like east of Yorktown, and they're coming off of the Navy base. It's just like, this is awesome.
Yeah, you can fish both ends of the airport here. You think you'd hook them on a big overhand cast? Gravelly Point's a great fishery. It's where everyone watches them. You can count the rivets in an airplane. They're so close. You can see people through the windows pretty much.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
All right.
It's loud though.
All right. Well, yeah, of course. I'm sure.
It doesn't bother the fish.
Rob, I have kept you for nearly an hour. And again, I cannot thank you enough.
My pleasure.
It's been my pleasure.
We have to do Fredericksburg, meet halfway, go to Carl's, get some custard.
See? Now, so fish, food, Rob Snowhite.
My girlfriend can go thrifting. We can swing up some fish. There's some good holes. Also, you can see the snakehead jump like salmon once they get above the fall line to get above the rocks. They'll jump 3 feet in the air.
No. Yeah. That's incredible. Oh. All right. We're going to
send some rain this way.
Yeah, that's what I needed to do. The best we got is some showers, a couple of sprinkles, maybe Friday, maybe a couple of showers Sunday. Monday, have a cold front coming through. If it holds together, we could get some good storms, but that's going to be heavy rain for a short period. There's no like day, 2-day type rains,
I plan on getting out Monday or Tuesday.
Yeah. Well, temperature on Monday could be near 80. So, yeah, good stuff.
All right. Well, thanks for having me.
Yeah, man.
All right. Take care.
Yeah. Thank you again. Rob Snowhite has been my guest on Off the Hook with Matty D. Please make sure you check out the way to get in touch with him, and that is through Linktree/Rob Snowhite, and you can find all of his links here, especially robsnowhite.com, fly fishing consultant, where you can find out about guiding and how to hire him. You can look at the flies, listen to his podcast. So much going on in Northern Virginia and D.C. Rob has all of the access points, including being able to fish in the George Washington State Park. He has that pass that gets him in there, which is awesome. Only a few guides have that, so check it out. Rob Snowhite has been my guest on Off the Hook with Matty D. We will see you next time for another episode. Thanks for joining us for another episode of Off the Hook with Matty D.